Hello everybody, I hope you can hear me okay. As promised, we're going to do a live Q&A today. I've got 5 questions that have come in, some in the group and some on email, so I'll go through each one and hopefully people will get what they need from this video. So the first question is around how to manage sugar cravings, particularly when reducing alcohol intake. And I know that for a lot of people, especially during the last year with lockdown and things, everybody's kind of had a little bit more booze, a bit more sugar, all that kind of stuff. So now if we're trying to look at reducing alcohol, how to manage the sugar cravings, which often kick in when the alcohol is being removed. The thing that's going on here is that the reward pathways in the brain that were used to being lit up by the alcohol are still wanting to be lit up by something, so they're driving you towards the sugar instead. And obviously alcohol, when we metabolize it, it goes into the bloodstream as sugar very, very quickly, and it lights up those reward pathways in the brain, gives you that dopamine hit, you get that lift, and that is what the brain is still wanting, so it's driving you towards the sugary foods instead. So there's a few different things that we can do to help manage that. The first one is to make sure that you're eating a good balanced amount of proteins, complex carbohydrates and healthy fats over the day, so that your brain is getting all the bits and pieces that it needs to make its neurotransmitters, things like serotonin and dopamine. These are made from proteins, so we have to make sure we've got good proteins in the diet. So in terms of good quality protein, including a good amount, at least a quarter of your plate, basically at each meal. So that might be eggs, it could be chicken, turkey, it could be red meat. If you're vegetarian, then it could be more the lentils, beans, pulses, nuts and seeds. All those things count towards your protein. Dairy, if you're having some dairy, chia seeds, for example, chia, flax seeds, quinoa, very good source of protein as well. So making sure there's a good variety and amount of protein in each of your meals, and also in snacks as well. If you are going to do snacks, making sure there's some good protein in there, but we will come on to snacks later with another question. Trying to kind of wean off the refined sugar. Now this is hard to do. Sugar is incredibly addictive. Again, it's those reward pathways in the brain kicking in. So do it gradually. And start making some simple swaps. So, for example, instead of sugary snacks and chocolates and things, you may be having some dates with a handful of nuts, for example. Some of the sweeter dried fruits, yes, they've got fruit sugar in, but they've still got tons of fibre in there. So the release of those sugars into your bloodstream is much more gradual, much slower. So it's not giving that instant hit, which causes the blood sugar spike and then the drop afterwards. If you've got that sweet taste, it could be things like licorice tea. Pukka do a lovely after dinner tea, and they do a peppermint and licorice tea as well. So anything with that licorice in, that's got a really naturally sweet taste to it. Moving to some of the sweeteners which are more natural, yes, still sugar, but we're trying to make those slow steps away from the refined sugar. So things like maple syrup can be helpful for that, and just gradually then reducing the amount of that you're having. Cinnamon, that's another good one as well. That kind of hits the sweet taste on the tongue, and that helps to support with blood sugar balance. Also looking at things like how you are managing your stress, because if you're very stressed, then our stress hormone, cortisol, that actually amplifies the sweet taste receptors on our tongue. So not only do we crave the sugar more, we actually taste it more. That taste is amplified. So anything that you can do to help manage your stress and to bring your cortisol levels down is going to be helpful. Exercise, movement, getting out into the fresh air and the natural sunlight to give you those endorphins, to give your brain and your nervous system a boost as well, that can help too. And I guess finally, just kind of tuning into those cravings really. Is it that you're really hungry? Do you really need something to eat? Would a glass of water and a nice walk around the block give you that lift that you need? Do you need to talk to someone? Do you need a hug, now that we can all hug again? Looking at what you're really, really needing in that moment, because it's very easy for us to go towards the sugary foods to fill a need, which may actually not be a need for sugar, but that's just how we're trying to get that reward pathway. So looking at your balanced meals to make sure you've got plenty of good quality protein in each meal, and snack, like I said, at least quarter of a plate per meal. looking at ways you can wean off of the sugar, swap over to things like maple syrup, sweeter fruits like dates, for example, dried figs, dried apricots, chopping them up, mixing them in with some nuts, kind of homemade trail mix type thing. Licorice tea, adding cinnamon to things, that can all help, and getting into the outdoors for some exercise and movement and tuning in to what you really need. Okay, so that was question number 1. Our next question is about late afternoon snacks. And again, we're back to protein again. We just keep talking about protein here. So that kind of 4-5 o'clock time, I know it gets me. That is the time when I'm like, sweet things. Classic slump time, about to start getting ready with the evening meal, but it's been quite a while since lunch, so it might be really, really hungry. So some ideas for late afternoon snacks. Again, including that good quality protein. Some people love hard-boiled eggs. Personally, I'm not a big fan of just chomping on a hard-boiled egg, but I know a lot of people do. So hard-boiled eggs are fantastic because you can boil them in advance and then keep them in your fridge, and they're there ready to just peel and eat. You could have it on its own, or you might want to have it with maybe a tomato salsa dip or some guacamole, something like that. Oatcakes and hummus, classic easy snack. That homemade trail mix that we've just been talking about with the chopped, dried, mixed fruits, and then, nuts, seeds, dried coconut, whatever you want to chuck in there. I once had a client who was coming off of the chocolate, and she put in the little tiny chocolate drops that you get for cake decorating into that trail mix, and that was just enough to give her that chocolatey hit, but without needing to eat the full chocolate bar, and that worked really, really well for her, and that's always stuck with me. I think that's genius. Crudités, so kind of chopped cucumber, celery, carrot, again having those with different dips, or maybe a nice piece of cheese. There's loads of recipes online for things like the dried fruit truffle balls, where you chop up, I've made them in the past with figs, but you can use dates and apricots, and you can whiz it up in a blender with some cashew nuts or maybe some hazelnuts, and you maybe add a teaspoon of cacao powder, and then you roll them. And then you roll them in desiccated coconut, for example, or I've rolled them in ground flax seeds before, and then they keep in the fridge. They're really handy, the little dried fruit truffle balls. Or if you're fancying something like olives, picking on olives, get a little tub of olives and have those maybe with some almonds or some cashew nuts. And again, you can get the different flavoured nuts now in the supermarket, kind of the was it almonds I saw that had the tamari coating on, really nice flavour. That goes really well with olives, so just having a little snack of that. Sitting down and enjoying your snack, so rather than just kind of eating on the hoof, just give yourself 10 minutes to get a really nice snack, sit down and enjoy it, eat it mindfully, and then you can get on with the rest of your day. So that's question 2. Right, our next question, we are rattling through here. This is one about anxiety, again, a very big theme this year for a lot of us. So what kind of foods can we have to help us to manage anxiety? I have done a video on this before, and there's a blog, so I will put those in the links in the group as well, so there's some connections there to the other stuff that I've done about anxiety. But essentially we are looking at things like protein again, because it's coming back to those neurotransmitters. So we need to give the body the building blocks that it needs to make the mood chemicals in our brain to keep our nervous system balanced. So good quality protein, including in every meal and a snack. And then specific, if I can get my teeth in, specific foods like oily fish is very helpful for the omega-3 essential fatty acids. So there's long chain essential fats there, a key part of the central nervous system. So in the brain, you've got, in all your cells, you've got lots of fats in the membranes of cells, and it's these fats that help cells communicate with one another. In the brain, if we don't have enough of these omega-3 fats, it's a bit like having a really bad mobile phone signal between the cells, and it gets all crackly and disturbed. So we need to make sure we've got plenty of the omega-3 fats for that cell-to-cell communication. And they also help to manage inflammation, which is a key part with anxiety and depression and other mental health issues. There's a sort of low-grade inflammation going on. So the omega-3 oils are helpful for that. So if you're not eating oily fish, then looking at things like flaxseed oil, hemp seed oil, having ground flax seeds, chia seeds, those kind of nuts and seeds in your diet as well. But you have to have a bit more than that, because in the plant-based sources, the omega-3 fat has to be converted through quite a few stages before it gets to become the EPA and the DHA, which are the omega-3 fats we find in oily fish, and which is what the nervous system is using. So if you're relying on those, it's just making sure you've got a good intake every day. There's a lovely oil blend called Udo's Choice Oil Blend, which combines a lot of things like flaxseed oil. It's got evening primrose oil in there, coconut oil. I think it's got some hemp seed oil in there, if I remember right. But it's a lovely blend of plant-based sources of the essential fats, and it's got a good amount of the omega-3 oil in there. Vitamin B6 and B5 are two of our key B vitamins that we need to help support the nervous system, particularly with anxiety. So you'll find those in foods like sweet potatoes, avocados, bananas, chicken, turkey, tuna, lots of different nuts and seeds, and mushrooms as well. So they're quite widespread, the B vitamins. Magnesium is another one. Again, that's our anti-stress mineral, so we use up a lot of that when we're stressed, and it works with the B vitamins to help with mood balance in the brain. Dark green leafy vegetables, anything that's dark green has got the magnesium in, so thinking kale, broccoli, rocket, watercress, that lovely dark green, because the chlorophyll molecule that gives the plant its green colour has magnesium at its centre. So that's why we know it's rich in magnesium. Turmeric, that's another one that's been shown to be helpful for managing anxiety. So adding turmeric to meals, making turmeric drinks with warm milk, that's a lovely way of having it. And you've got your lovely herbal teas like chamomile tea and lemon balm as well, which are shown to be very soothing to the nervous system. And you can add things like lemon balm leaves to salads as well. It's really easy to grow. It's a bit rampant because it's part of the mint family, but you can chop up the leaves and add it into salads. Looking also at foods that might be making things worse. This is the flip side of the coin. So we can eat all the good things, but we have to look at things that may be adding to the problem. So things like refined sugary foods, alcohol, and for some people gluten can worsen anxiety as well. So it might be worth just swapping out gluten foods such as wheat, barley and rye just for a few weeks to see if that makes a difference. See how you go with that. Okay. But I will put up those other links that I mentioned as well to the other blog and video about anxiety. So completely different question now. This one is about what can be done about persistent constipation. And again, this can be made worse by stress. So I think the first thing to consider if you've got chronic persistent constipation is looking at what might be triggering it. Stress is a big one that really does interrupt the digestive system all the way through. So that can add, for some people it gives them diarrhea, other people it can cause constipation. So looking to see if stress is a trigger. Certain foods can be triggers as well. So for some people it can be wheat and or gluten that can cause constipation. And for some people dairy can make things worse as well. One of the dairy proteins, casein, can take quite a while to go through the digestive system. This is often seen in kids, and that can worsen constipation. And then in terms of what foods that can help, so we're looking at magnesium again, because magnesium is the mineral that helps our muscles relax. And sometimes with constipation, there's too much constriction in the muscles and they're not relaxing and constricting rhythmically, and the magnesium can help with that. So again, looking at your dark green leafy vegetables. Oats have some magnesium in there as well, various nuts do, so your cashews, hazelnuts, almonds, they're good sources. Buckwheat, that's got some magnesium in. So getting plenty of those kinds of foods in the diet. Your ground flax seeds are fantastic. Ground flax seeds I think is one of the best things you can have for constipation, but you need to soak them. So this is where doing something like the overnight oats can be helpful. So you'll put 2 or 3 tablespoons of oats and a tablespoon of ground flaxseed in a bowl or a jar, and then add some water or some milk. Some people do it with yogurt if you want it a bit thicker, and you leave it overnight. And the ground flax seeds absorb a lot of that liquid and they form this sort of gelatinous mass, which you don't really notice because it's mixed in with your oats. And it's that gel that helps to soothe and get everything moving smoothly through the bowel again. It's not an irritant, so it's not like kind of eating senna tea or something like that. Some herbs and foods can be an irritant and a bit more of a laxative. things like your ground flax seeds, and chia seeds do the same as well. They're just very gentle acting, so take a day or two of eating them to notice a difference, but then you'll just notice that everything's moving through a bit more comfortably and you're having more comfortable bowel movements. Prunes is another good one, age-old remedy, eating a few prunes. You could add them into your overnight oats. Plenty of vegetables, cooked vegetables I would say as well. Things like soups and casseroles are really good because the cooking process has already started the digestive process, and being a soup or a casserole, there's lots of liquid in there as well, so it's like a hydrating food that you're bringing into your system. Things like short grain brown rice is good, and again I would soak that before cooking it so that it's as hydrated as it can be and it's bringing that hydration into your digestion. Lentils, some people find those fantastic as well. They can, chuck those into a soup or a casserole. I'd steer clear, personally I would steer clear of things like bran, like your bran flakes and your raw bran and things, because bran can be very abrasive to some people's digestive systems. It can be a bit too much of an irritant, whereas your porridge oats and your lentils, things like stewed apples, cooked vegetables, they all have what's called more of the soluble fibre in, which is more gentle acting. So they've still got some insoluble, but they've got a better balance of soluble fibre in there, and that's a little bit more soothing on the digestive system. So I hope that helps with the persistent constipation. Not a nice thing to have. And then our last question was about some simple meal ideas. So this lady is kind of stuck in a rut a bit with her jacket potatoes and sandwiches and would like to eat more vegetables. Also needs to be mindful of her iron intake as well, because that needs a bit of a boost. So I think firstly, if you're stuck in a rut, there's probably a reason for that, and that could be time pressure. So looking at what you're already doing and then upgrading that is a good place to start. So things like, sandwiches and jacket potatoes are not bad per se at all. So looking at how you can get more vegetables into those meals. I'm a big fan of doing a tray bake of lots of different vegetables and just roasting them, because all you've got to do is chop them up, bung them in the oven for 25 minutes and you've got this big pile of lovely roasted vegetables, things like peppers and aubergine and courgette, maybe some carrots in there as well, even broccoli. And they can keep in the fridge and you can reheat them, or you can have them cold as a salad. And they can be added into things like a pita pocket. So if you're having a sandwich that's a pita bread, chuck some of your vegetables in, add some meat or fish or cheese or eggs or some hummus, and you've instantly upgraded that sandwich. You've got some more variety and colour and different types of vegetable into that meal. Same for your jacket potato as well, making a lovely mixed salad, but making quite a lot so that you've got it in the fridge and it's going to last a few days. It could be a lentil salad. You might have some hard-boiled eggs in there, lots of different vegetables, a lovely dressing, and that's instantly upgraded your jacket potato. Other quick and easy meals, I think omelettes are pretty good. You can chuck loads of different things into an omelette. It can be a veggie omelette, or you could put meat in there if you wanted to. You've got all that protein from the eggs and they're easy to serve, with a salad, or you might have that with some baked potatoes, potato wedges, whatever you want to have. Stir fries are another good, quick and easy one as well. So making sure you've got the stuff in the fridge, and then it's just, 10-minute prep, 10-minute cook, and there you go, you've got a really nice, quick, balanced meal. In terms of iron, obviously there's the two forms of iron. You've got heme iron and non-heme iron. So the heme iron comes from meat-based products, organ meats in particular, things like lamb's liver, really, really rich in iron. And it is the form of iron that is most bioavailable for us. So we do absorb it the best and we get the most from it. If you're relying on vegetarian or vegan sources, for vegetarians then eggs are still a good source, but if you're vegan and you're relying entirely on the plant-based sources, then you do need to be mindful that the bioavailability, the absorption rate of the non-heme iron is much, much lower. So you have to be including lots of different sources every day and combining them alongside vitamin C rich foods as well to make sure that you're maximising your absorption of it. So things like your lentils, chickpeas, tofu, various seeds, so the ground flax seeds that we've already been mentioning, and chia seeds, they have iron in. Kale, dried apricots, dried figs, they're all good sources of the plant-based iron. It is often bound up, so in things like cereals, they'll say, you know, there's lots of iron in various cereals, but you've got something called phytate in cereals, which does bind to a lot of iron. So making sure that you're soaking things before you're cooking them, like soaking rice, for example, that helps to reduce the phytates and increases the bioavailability of the minerals. And combining those with your vitamin C rich foods and also foods that are rich in copper, because we need copper for iron to work properly in the body. So your dark green leafy vegetables, they're a good source of both plant-based iron and copper, so they're a good option. Your pulses and tofu, they've got copper in as well. And if you are eating meat, then things like your organ meats, that naturally has copper in there too, so that, you know, work alongside that heme iron that's in there. So lots of different ideas there. So I hope this has been helpful. I feel like I've just talked non-stop, which I have. Any comments, please do pop them in the group below this video, and I will do another Q&A in a few weeks' time. And if you've got any burning questions at any point, obviously just post them in the group and I will do what I can to answer them. Thank you for watching.